Today we're talking about the new heavens and the new earth. And this is the final lesson for the kids. Maybe there's a summary lesson, but I don't know if they're doing that. But at any rate, this lesson is a lesson that finishes their walk through the Bible from cover to cover. We've been walking through with them for the past several months, and we're going to do a kind of a celebration for them. And I think I mentioned this last week. Each of the kids will be presented a Bible. They're already picked out and delivered, and that's kind of an appreciation for them for sticking it through, and a celebration for them walking through the Bible. I think that's a pretty big feat, and it's just encouraging for us as parents and older people to see the excitement that the kids have for going through the Bible. So the new heavens and the new earth, we are going to start in Revelation chapter 21. Y'all remember the song, right? Revelation 21:8. That's not our passage, though we are going to read. We're going to end with that verse. Revelation chapter 21, starting in verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away." And he who was seated on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." Also he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." And he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. To the one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death." All right, we'll unpack this a little bit. It's probably something we don't talk about often enough, but there's going to be I think we're all in agreement, the earth as we know it is going to come to an end at some point. And we talked about this last week, how there have been so many people who've predicted the rapture and, Jesus' second coming, and they've given specific dates and said this is the date it's going to happen. And then inevitably there's usually a cult, almost always a cult that surrounds those types of predictions, and people do really bizarre things. People give all their money, they sell their house, they dump their retirement funds, they dump their savings accounts, and they usually give to the leader of, they would never call it a cult, but it's what it is. They dump all their money and give it to them because you can't take money with you, and so it's best to just get rid of it. My thing is, it's kind of ironic. If the earth is coming to a close, what does it matter if you sell all of your stuff and give it away to people, right? I mean, I think it's the very fact that we don't know when the end is going to happen that we should quit making faces at me. That we should be selling possessions now. And I'm not talking about, dumping our whole house and putting ourselves into poverty, but we should be giving generously now. We don't know when the end is going to happen. And so shouldn't we be doing those things right now? Shouldn't we be doing them anyway? Shouldn't we be helping the poor? Shouldn't we be helping the needy? Shouldn't we be feeding people who are hungry, providing water for people who thirst? all the things that Jesus says when he separates the sheep from the goats, right? We talked about that last week. He was like, you didn't do these things to me. And people said, well, when did we see you hungry or naked or thirsty? And he said, I'm telling you, when you didn't do these things to the least of these, you didn't do them to me. And so we ought to be doing them now. And typically people put this kind of stuff off until there's some big revelation like that, and they're like, oh my goodness, now I need to dump all my money. And you see the kind of scams with all these big TV evangelists that like place your hands on the TV and send your seed money in. Now's the time. And people are like, okay, yeah, now's the time because they're telling me that the end is near and I need to give all this money and provide the seed money. And so people do it. And it's amazing how many people fall for these scams. But people do it. And my thing is, why get caught up in that? Like if we really believe what the Bible says, you just do what's right always, right? Do the next right thing. I still remember that lesson that when Steph and Ronnie were talking about ministry, and Steph said, when they were doing ministry in Haiti, it's so overwhelming because the needs are just monumentous, like just massive needs constantly, and people die. People who rely on you will die in Haiti. It's a little bit unlike here, where that's not really a daily reality for us. But over there, for missionaries, there's so many needs that come your way, and you can't possibly fill all those needs, that people legitimately die on your watch because you could not help them. And Steph and Ronnie dealt with that quite a lot. They had babies who would die because they didn't have the funds, or they didn't have the means to help babies who were starving or who had medical issues. And so Ronnie actually, he called me one day after Eden and I had visited there. And it was a couple weeks later, and Ronnie called me, and he said, hey, I need help because I'm doing a funeral for one of the babies. And we actually had visited with this baby when we were there a couple weeks before. Eden actually held this baby that died. And he said, I'm doing a funeral for this baby. And he's like, in Haiti too, third world countries, you don't go out and purchase a casket, you make a casket. And typically, the missionaries are responsible for doing that. So Ronnie was like, I have to make the casket for this baby, and I have to preach this baby's funeral. That's a daily reality there. And it just blows my mind that people wait and wait and wait and wait, and they're like, okay, now's the time. Or in the future, like in 5 years, I'll be at a place financially where I'll be able to help people out. Right? I'm going to get all my stuff in line now, and then when this is paid off or this is paid off, I'll be able to help people. And the reality is, which was what I kept hounding on last week, there is no right time. Right? There's never going to be that sweet spot that's the right time to help people out. And so what Steph said is that we're so overwhelmed with all these needs that it can crush your soul and crush your spirit. And so the best that we can do is to help the person who's in front of you to the best of your ability right now. And I think what shuts us down a lot is, we think, we talked about this a lot last week, and Brent had a lot of good insight into this too. Like, we postpone doing things because they're kind of two extremes. One is that Jesus is coming right away. And so people are like, I've done all I can do, and now we just sit and wait. And the other extreme is Jesus was here, over 2,000 years ago, and the earth is going to be here another 10,000 years, And so we have time. And that's combined with our Western mindset that we're almost immortal. And we talked about that. Like, we feel ripped off whenever people die at the age of 99 because their doctors didn't do enough to keep them alive, for 16 more years. And there's this idea that if we keep getting the right medical care, we can prolong life, and we can live longer, and we can look younger, and we can feel better, and we can get Botox, and like all this stuff that makes us look and feel younger. And so we get obsessed with that. And I think Jesus was so crystal clear that this day's going to come like a thief in the night, and we really don't know. I mean, we really don't know. Jesus himself doesn't know. So just do what's right. You can think of hundreds of examples of Jesus commending people for their faith. The woman who put the mite in the plate, like he's stepping back and just watching her, and he's amazed at this woman. He's like, she gave more than anybody else here who gave at the temple today, because she gave out of the kindness of her heart. She gave everything that she had. And so this passage in Revelation reminds us, like, for all the brokenness and all the sorrow and all the broken relationships and all the stuff that we focus on here that cripples us, he's saying there's going to be this new creation, this new earth, this new Jerusalem that drops down, and there's not going to be any more tears, and we're going to be made new together. And I think it's just such a beautiful picture, because any of us, which is all of us, who've experienced pain and sorrow and disappointment and brokenness and sin and all the mess that comes with that, like when we've experienced that, this picture of something new, where we're made new, where there's a new heaven, a new earth, I think it's just a beautiful picture of eternal life with God. And I think of the angels that bow down to God, and they're all singing and they're praising God just constantly around the clock, saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty." It's something tremendous to look forward to. And I think sometimes we get so focused on the Job type stuff, right, Brent? Like, we get focused on the horrific stuff. For 2 years, we focus on Job. But we focus on the Job-like stuff going on in our lives, right? There's constant disappointment. There's constant pain. There's constant sorrow. There's constant strained relationships. There's just constant in our life. And we can get so focused on that we forget that we have this amazing hope, right? Where we're gonna praise God forever, and we're gonna be free from all of that stuff. And I've watched people get so broken down, worn down, embittered, angry at God, angry at other Christians, angry at themselves. I've seen people get wrapped up in addiction. I've had so many friends who've lost lives to addiction. I've had friends lose lives to suicide. On and on and on. And I'm like, I can't wrap my mind around the fact that these people miss the most important part of what it is to be a believer. And that's the hope of eternal life. That's the separation from all the pain and the agony. And so when people get to that point where they're like, the only way I can get away from this pain is to either numb it, with the alcohol or with the drugs, or to end my life. Either we've failed them as Christians to really focus on that message of hope, or somehow they just could not see that hope. And so that's the message. When Jesus talks about all this stuff, I know so many people who focus on the hellfire and brimstone, and they're like, see, you need to do this or you're going to rot in hell, you're going to burn. And you're really missing the point. Like, the whole point is that you need to do these things so that you're free from all the pain and the sorrow, and we can worship the God who created us forever. 2 Peter chapter 3. Peter talks about it too. Second Peter chapter 3, verses 8 through 13. But do not overlook this one fact, beloved, that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is 1 day. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. But that day of the Lord will come like a thief. And then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. Since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people ought you to be in the lives of holiness and godliness, waiting for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be set on fire and dissolved, and the heavenly bodies will melt as they burn. But according to his promise, we are waiting for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. And so again, it's this waiting for the new heavens and the new earth. You know that all this stuff is gonna dissolve, it's gonna waste away, it's gonna burn up, and there's gonna be something new that comes out of that. And this is kind of a refinement process. And the Bible talks about that a lot, this refining by fire. It's a cleansing, it's a purification. And there's going to be this new heaven and this new earth, and it's this beautiful picture. And if you ask me what it's going to look like, I'm going to say I have no idea. I don't think that's the point of the writers, is to give this very descriptive blueprint for what it's going to look like. I mean, the reality is we have no idea. I mean, we really don't. But we know a couple of things are crystal clear, that we ought to be living our lives as if it's going to happen anytime. It will come like a thief in the night. And so we need to be ready for it. And again, to keep harping on what we did last week, I think so many people are completely unprepared for it. And people who are Christians, or people who bear the name of Christ, people who are thinking about becoming a Christian, they're kind of on the fence. People are they're so unprepared for it.
As far as what heaven's going to look like, I read an author who just said, really, we should picture it as whatever motivates us to do more for God. Like whatever it is,
yeah.
Whatever reward it is that motivates you.
Yeah.
Because you can see pictures and things like that, but
pictures don't do anything justice ever. Yeah.
Who knows? I mean,
yeah.
I think it's ironic that this passage here that you just read, which is focused on, we don't know when it's going to happen. A lot of people use to talk about like 1,000 years and like to use for other purposes other than what it's meant for.
Yeah.
Because it was funny. I was just talking to my mom before I came in about somebody with Revelation and their beliefs on Revelation and how this passage. I just mentioned this passage about how it's used.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, it's interesting too, because this is going maybe off topic a little bit, but I've seen so often where we've over-prepared people to become Christians, where like people are ready and they're like, I want to put Christ on in baptism. I'm ready. I want to commit my life to Christ. I want to wash away my sins. And we're like, well, let's really study with you. And we kind of put it off and put it off and put it off to the point where I've seen people just give up and be like, you know what, like, I guess I'm not ready. And I think about the Ethiopian eunuch, like, that's such a clear example to me where that couldn't have been but maybe tops a couple hour conversation. And he sees a body of water and he's like, well, what prevents me from going into the water? And Philip was like, apparently nothing, and they...
People don't need to know the whole doctrine of the New Testament in order to...
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this a lot with the church in Corinth, right? Paul's like, by now you ought to not be, mingling with the prostitutes. And like he's writing to Christians, people who'd been Christians for quite a while. And you're like, wait a second, like you didn't teach that to them when you were in Corinth? And apparently Paul didn't teach them a lot of things because they weren't quite ready yet. And I think we have this picture in our mind that when people became Christians, it's like they went from paganism to what we picture as, the American perfect Christian with the, perfectly parted hair and the suit and tie, like Corinth was a mess. And not just Corinth. Like look at every single church that has a letter written to them. There are all kinds of like major issues, like major issues that we've never dealt with in our lifetime. And Paul's just kind of writing them like kind of nonchalantly, like, hey, you guys need to knock this stuff off and come to repentance and stop living this way.
Whenever you talk about over-teaching, on this, and I can understand why people would back away from that, when do I get to the meat of the word, what I have to do? And that's it. That's what we need.
Yeah.
There was a preacher, Sister Maria, she had gone to the preacher and talked to him about wanting her grandson to be baptized. And he had studied the scriptures and everything. He knew what he had to do to be saved. And the preacher says, I will not do it unless he can study with me. And whenever he said that, I said, I will take care of the baptism myself.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. I would have done the same thing.
Because an attitude like that, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's absolute control. And I can understand, I can understand wanting to make sure that somebody's prepared and ready for it, that they're not just going through motions or doing it because it's popular or whatever, I can understand that, but, prolonging, putting it off is only teaching them to do all the things we talked about last week. Like, you start doing that in every aspect of your life, and you're like, well, what's the hurry to serve? What's the...
I think that you should just have a couple, short conversation that would get you there.
Yeah. Well, and I think
weeks of study or anything like that.
Yeah. Right, and I think part of that is that we don't do discipleship well, and so we do education well. We do Bible reading well. We really do. With our history, I think we know the Bible well. We read the Bible well. We study the Bible well. But discipleship is not a forte within the Restoration churches, and I think a better understanding is to tell people, just start living your life right. Repent. That's the central message of the whole gospel is repent. Live like today is your last day, because it might be. Do what's right always. Do the next right thing. When you see people in need, just step in and help them. And start doing those things and modeling those things. Do it with your children. Pray for people. Take them out. And I see so many adult Christians leave their kids at home when they do ministry. And I'm like, what a missed opportunity. Take your kids with you and let them see. Well, I don't want to expose them to worldly things out there. And I'm like, they're going to see it eventually, Take them out and show them what it's like to talk to homeless people. We were helping out a homeless family here in town back a few months ago, and I took my kids, I took them right into the hotel room with me. And, it was a good opportunity to show them, when we say to be thankful for what you have, we really mean to be thankful for what you have, because some people don't have anything. I mean, literally, they have nothing. And our kids need to see that. And they need to have a heart that's bent towards people who are less fortunate than them. And they're going to see some crude things in the process. I mean, they just are. But it's a good reminder that there is no right time except right now. Right now is the right time to help somebody when they're in need. And start discipling people, and as Paul did, right? Paul certainly educates people. But when these churches sprung up and they were planted, there was so much confusion around all kinds of things. And Paul didn't spend all of his time correcting people and giving, the right theology and making sure all their theology is perfect. Paul immersed people, or taught people to be immersed. People became Christians. Paul discipled them, and Paul kept writing and this corrective stuff like, hey, you guys probably shouldn't be sleeping around with prostitutes. Probably not a good idea. You probably shouldn't be getting drunk during the Lord's Supper. Like, nah, it doesn't really resemble the Lord's Supper when you guys are getting hammered and, like acting like a bunch of idiots. So Paul writes to the baptized Christians after he thanks God for them. And he's like, I thank God every day for you. And I think Paul really meant that. Can you imagine if we treated other Christians that way, who were living like rampant, crazy, sinful lifestyles, and being like, all right, first of all, I thank God for you. Second of all, knock it off. Let's get you back on track. So I think when we keep all of this in perspective, that ultimately we're all going to stand before the judgment seat of God. I mean, that's the whole point. We're going to stand before the judgment seat of God, whether you believe in God or not. All of us are going to stand before the judgment seat. And we're going to have to give account. And if we really believe that there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, and that there's this realm free of pain and sorrow where we can just worship God forever, I think we take that a whole lot more seriously. I think we would take our walk with God a whole lot more seriously too. Okay, Isaiah chapter 65. This, the new heaven and new earth were talked about long before the New Testament was penned. Isaiah 65:17 says, "For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered or come into mind." And then jumping over to chapter 66, verses 15 and 16. "For behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger in fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire will the Lord enter into judgment, and by his sword with all flesh, and those slain by the Lord shall be many." So again, it's this consummation of fire and things being burned up, and then something new coming out of that. This is not... It's not a new idea. You find this all throughout the Bible, pretty much from cover to cover. You had two ways to purify things, basically, by fire and by water. So, we mentioned before the mikvaot, the baptistries, that the immersion pools. You guys probably saw them when you were in. Yeah. So they had steps going down into it, and the mikvaot had fresh, like flowing water that had to go into it, because you couldn't have stagnated water. You couldn't have all the uncleanliness hanging around in that water. So it had to be kind of washed away. And this idea of movement is really prevalent throughout the Bible too. We talked a lot about the scapegoat. The high priest would place their hands on the scapegoat once a year. And heap all the sins of Israel on that scapegoat, send it out into the wilderness for the next year. So you couldn't have this stagnated thing that kept uncleanliness and sins around. So same with the water. Some things were cleansed by fire. Some things were cleansed by water. And sometimes both. And then, of course...
Blood.
Yeah, blood. That's right. Yeah. So that combination was very important. And so the day of Pentecost, today is Pentecost Sunday all around the world. We're going to be talking about Pentecost, but what did the Holy Spirit come down as? What did it look like? Tongues of fire, right? So you have this cleansing that's coming through the Holy Spirit by fire. And so all of these things are kind of representations of this bigger thing where there's just this big consuming fire that burns things up, that cleanses it, and then something new and better comes out of that. Something very pure that's cleansed from all the impurities emerges from that. And it's perfect, and it lasts forever. Okay, we're tight on time, so I want to end with 1 Corinthians 15 because Paul talks about the resurrection. And people were wanting to know in Corinth, for whatever reason, they wanted to know what the resurrection body was going to look like, which personally I think is kind of a valid question, but Paul kind of rips them for it a little bit. 1 Corinthians 15, starting in verse 35. But someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body did they come? You foolish person. What you sow does not come to life unless it dies. And what you sow is not the body that is to be, but a bare kernel, perhaps of wheat or some other grain. But God gives it a body as he has chosen, and to each kind of seed its own body. For not all flesh is the same, but there is one kind for humans, another for animals, another for birds, another for fish. There are heavenly bodies and earthly bodies, but the glory of the heavenly is of one kind, and the glory of the earthly is of another. There is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for star differs from star in glory. So it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable, what is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. Thus it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. But it is not the spiritual that is first, but the natural, and then the spiritual. The first man was from the earth, a man of dust. The second man is from heaven. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are of the dust. And as is the man of heaven, so also are those who are of heaven. Just as we have borne the image of man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the man of heaven. And so Paul's kind of saying, like, you guys don't get it. Like, there's going to be you're going to have a new body. It's going to be a spiritual body. There's a new heaven. There's a new earth. And each has its own different glory. And so he gives examples like no two stars are the same. Like each star has its own glory. And what's interesting is all the imaging that we have now. Like if you guys look at what NASA's producing right now, it is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, unbelievable. And if you think about too just the science behind it, the mathematics behind it, like nobody argues now. Nobody. I don't care how atheist you are. Nobody argues now that there literally is no beginning and there is no end. The expansion goes to infinity. And there's so much power and might, and like the biggest star in our solar system is like a tiny little puny speck compared to the size of some of these giant stars. And it's crazy. And there are trillions and zillions of these things. Like, we don't even have an idea. The amount of galaxies. How many galaxies are there? Like, roughly?
They don't have a number.
Yeah, like trillions of galaxies. And within a galaxy, there are billions or trillions of stars. And so if you think about that, trillions of galaxies, I mean, it goes on literally forever. If you think about the amount of power and the amount of glory, it kind of puts things in perspective, and it makes us realize how small we really are. And that when the Bible says there's going to be this new heaven and new earth, and we're going to have this new spiritual body, I kind of think God has the power to do that. You know? Shouldn't be a surprise. We shouldn't be like, like people question that, though. They really question God about that. They question the scriptures. Maybe, how do we know that it wasn't just some man who made this stuff up? And I'm like, just look at what's out there. Just start with that and look at what's out there. And that stuff, to say that this stuff is just an accident, and out of all those trillions of galaxies, everything just happened to come together at the right time, in the right way, in the right fashion, in the right, all stuff had to be perfect for life to begin. Explain that. Explain how that happened. I mean, like mathematically, it is a literal impossibility. It cannot happen mathematically. Can't happen. So God is just this amazing God, and I think sometimes we just have to stop and reflect on the new heaven and the new earth and really think about it, and think about how magnificent it is, it's going to be. And God, He's been preparing this since before the beginning of time for us. That's pretty incredible.